keep getting a refill, or should you go and speak to a healthcare provider and maybe there is a time when you can maybe come off of it in 3 months or something like that. So some things can be optimized, so be aware of when monitoring needs to happen. And follow up. So is there another blood work or something, or an x-ray that needs to be checked, a diagnostic method, just to tell us, hey, the drug is truly working and I should continue to take it, or do you need something else? So we'll talk about specifically the medications, get better results from your medications, because you'll hopefully learn more about your medications that you might be taking at home, some side effects and interactions that we want you to be aware of. And overall goal of today's presentation is really to just enjoy your health, and one way you can do that is by getting to know what exactly you're putting into your body in terms of medications. So there are many different types of combination of medications that are used for cardiac health. There are times when there might be 2 or 3 medications used to really achieve one goal, just because it will be better controlled that way. So we'll talk a little bit about that. The general idea, though, is that there's hopefully if there are any clots that are produced, that we try to minimize them. So that's one approach that is used within cardiac health. If it's just your blood pressure, you check it at a pharmacy and you realize it's been up or down consistently for, let's say, you've checked on weekly basis, twice or thrice, and you're not seeing numbers that are optimal, this is a great approach to help control that and bring it to a bit more normal level. Some people might have different heart rates. Some may be faster versus slower, or the rhythm of that lub-dub sound of a heart that we usually think of isn't on track. Some people might have just cholesterol that over long term can catch up to us, leading to some sort of an emergent event. So how to avoid those by taking medications. And one approach is try and increase the size of arteries and try to have the blood flow better so it can really circulate throughout our body from top to bottom. So I will skim over most of these things because I'm not here, you're not in class learning a lecture that we do, but this is more just a general idea that we want you to sort of be aware of. What are these drugs? So the word coagulant is like, coag means like a clot. So the anticoagulant is doing exactly the opposite. So it's trying to break any clots. So blood can make clots whenever that happens naturally, and our body breaks it down naturally too. But over time, that process can slow down. And therefore, sometimes we need medications like anticoagulants to help break those faster. The biggest issue with this piece is the clots, if they're naturally forming, they could travel within our body and get stuck. And they would get stuck if, let's say, an artery was too narrow. And that's why, how I mentioned earlier, arteries might require broadening. So those are some approaches that we take to try and help the heart pump the blood throughout the body. Another approach is antiplatelets. One really famous name that comes within this category is aspirin. A lot of people know what an aspirin is, but this is a medication that helps there's a type of cell, platelet, within our bloods. There's red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets, so the 3 types. And these medications will help fight those, just because platelets usually cause clots. So when you get a cut, you're cutting vegetables or something like that, if you bled out, that would be an issue. So the body tries to make clots there naturally to protect you. But let's say that is overreacting for whatever reason, medications would be needed to help break that process. So those are some medications, and the word stroke or TIA, just because I met some people in the room who did work for Heart and Stroke Foundation, so that clot would travel, and let's say when it gets stuck within the brain arteries, that's what a stroke is called. And the idea of being on this medication would be to avoid that piece. The next category, actually before I move on to the category, so things that are relevant to you. Yes, there are anticoagulants and antiplatelets, and they help us break down clots, But there are some side effects as well that can take place. Some things that are sort of alarming and we want you to be aware of might be if our body naturally tries to stop bleeding from making clots. You can imagine if this drug, too much of it is taken or it doesn't work well with your body, then you might be bleeding as a side effect because it's trying to stop clot formation, right? And therefore, some things that you should be on the lookout if you were on any of the medications that were on the previous slide might be you're brushing your teeth and you notice your gums are bleeding more than usual. So that's considered like a minor bleed. It's important to be aware of that. If that keeps happening continuously, make a note of it, and the next time you see your healthcare provider, definitely let them know. An alarming one is the major bleed. So you notice blood within your stool, or you find that, let's say you did have a cut just while cutting vegetables, but your finger or whatever is bleeding for over 5 to 7 minutes, it should stop within that time. If it's not, then you know there might be something going on in terms of medication and how your body is reacting to it. So it's really important to get yourself to a healthcare provider almost immediately for that piece. Many possible drug interactions with these medications. So if the name warfarin or Coumadin means anything to you, then it's important to be aware of what foods you might consume in your day-to-day. And if you suddenly decide to go through a vegetarian diet and all you want to eat is green leafy things, this might be something that interacts with your medication and something you want to be aware of before you incorporate that in your lifestyle. So it's definitely a good idea for this set of medications to be wearing like a medical bracelet, just in case there is an emergency of any sort, an accident or something like that. Whoever tries to help you can see and is aware that you are on such a medication and they need to act accordingly. Another set of medications that help lower blood pressure are ACEs, ARBs, so towards the bottom of the slide, beta blockers, calcium channel blockers, diuretics. I'll briefly go into these, but what I want you to sort of remember from today's conversation are definitely the bolded numbers. So the first one goes, if you are a normal healthy person, we want you to try and aim for the number 140 over 90 millimeter mercury for your blood pressure in your regular day-to-day. You can very easily go to any pharmacy and they have the apparatus available who can do that for you. If you would like, it's a great time to have a conversation with the pharmacist and ask, what are some basic things I should be aware of? Like, we're enjoying coffee today. It would not be a good idea to have a cup of coffee and get your blood pressure right after, because that will definitely give you a spike. Same thing, like if you're sitting down, you need to be comfortable. It's supposed to be a very relaxing experience that will give us healthcare providers a better picture of how hard your heart is working to try and get the blood throughout. But then that number does change if you have diabetes or anybody within your family you're aware of. For those guys, we like to lower the number a little bit just because their body's working hard trying to manage other things. So the number we aim for them is 130 over 80 millimeter mercury as a normal. Now, a lot of people ask me during this presentation that you tell us of these numbers and you talk about peaks, but what about lows? And honestly, there isn't a low, like a number or something that you can target saying that's the bare minimum, or my goal is to get to the absolute bottom because I'm most protected there. There's no such thing as that. It really depends on the body and what you do in your day-to-day. As an example, I'm like a 90 over 80. So that's just because I guess I don't run enough or something like that. But that doesn't mean I'm abnormal, because most of my other health is doing okay so far. Okay, so ACEs and ARBs, these are medications that will help you improve your blood pressure and your heart failure as well, if there is such a thing that you're aware of, again, with the person you're speaking to. But I'll take some time to just sort of talk about the list of names you see. Do you notice first of all, these names are really hard to pronounce for most people. But let's say the name says enalapril under ACE inhibitors. It has a bracket of Vasotec, and all the names that I've flashed on my slide so far have brackets. I just want you to make a note of that. So every drug does have two names. One is the generic name and one is the brand name. I shouldn't say every drug, but I'll talk more about that towards the end. So I want you to be aware of that, just because when you call in a pharmacy or you drop by and you say, hey, I want this medication, but I want exactly this name, there is something equivalent to it available. And I'll come back to this point, but I just want you to be aware there's a reason why there are two names to all these medications. So some side effects or repercussions that we want you to be taking care of or be aware of. For ACEs and ARBs, a lot of people, when they start their, not a lot again, a few, 30% or so people in a population who do start this medication might get like a dry, hacking cough. If you're the kind of person who did start this medication and you notice that's a new thing happening to your body, definitely bring that up to your healthcare provider and they can adjust the medication by not giving you the ACE and give you another one. Just something to be aware of. Besides that, I think I'm okay with this one. So beta blockers is another approach to try and control your blood pressure, but this medication, these set of medications will actually help you with the blood rhythm as well. So if it doesn't follow the exact lub dub sound, then this medication can help us get there. Some people might get like a lub dub, something along those lines. So our idea is to try and help the heart, which is a muscle, get to the normal rhythm it can, just so it can really make sure all the volume of the blood can travel throughout the body. So some side effects to be aware of is dizziness and lightheadedness. Now these are things that a pharmacist might or a doctor might tell you just when you take your medication, but you're like, what does that really mean to me? So let's say you take your medication and you get up in the morning out of bed and you usually just get yourself up and you're on your way, but you find you feel a little woozy. That's important to know and be aware of. Maybe the dose is too high for you. Or you're sitting and watching a game on TV, but as soon as you get out of the couch after sitting for a while, you feel you're a little imbalanced and you do use some of these medications. It would be a great idea to bring this conversation up to your healthcare provider to see if something can be done to definitely optimize that. Another set of medications are calcium channel blockers. These ones really help the heart's strength to pump all the blood. So like I said, heart is a muscle. So just like we like to go to the gym to try and work on our biceps, leg muscles, whichever muscles to help us stronger, your heart is the exact same way. So when we're running, we're trying to make that muscle work hard and try and build up some strength. So these medications will try and relax some of the blood vessels to try and help the heart pump the blood better, stronger. So again, it will help if it's trying to open up some of the arteries and help the heart, then you can understand the heart is not working as much and hopefully your blood pressure is normalized. Also, this medication is used for chest pain, which is also known as angina. So if that is something that you're aware of, then this might be one of the medications you use. Some side effects that are worth keeping in mind for these set of medications is some people get swelling or fluid buildup. Usually it'll start at the ankles, so within your feet. There are also times when people face some constipation-related issues with these medications. So be aware of them ahead of time when you start these medications. Perhaps you can just avoid it and not have to go through that if you have the conversation with the pharmacist, and they can definitely preventatively help you. Another set of medications are called water pills, or we call them diuretics as well. So this was the one at the very beginning I was mentioning, some medications you can take in daytime versus nighttime. So these medications try to get rid of the extra fluid within our body to try and help the heart so it doesn't have to pump so much water and volume throughout the body. So it's important to take this medication in the daytime, right? If it's trying to get rid of water and you take it at nighttime just before going to bed, well, you won't be able to have a good night's sleep just because you need to use the restroom over and over. So that's something that we want you to be aware of. One of these medications within this category is actually important in terms of sun exposure as well. So if it's summertime and you plan to hang out at the beach or outside quite a bit, it might be important to have the conversation of how much of the SPF in my sunscreen is important when I'm on this medication. And definitely it would be on the higher end of things. So some sun exposure can be reduced because it can make the medication last in your body longer, and therefore causing some other side effects. So the one number I'd like to give with that medication, by the way, is 5 p.m. Try not to take it after 5 p.m. just because it gives the body a chance to be able to pee out just before you go to bed if your normal bedtime is 10-ish. Another set of medications will help you with that rhythm again, that love-dove sound. So a few of these medications have 2 or 3 roles because they work on similar receptors and so on. So these medications will include beta blockers, which I already spoke about, calcium channel blockers also already spoke about. And these medications will help regulate that heartbeat to what we want it to be normal at. So some people might have bradycardia, which means slowness of the heart, versus tachycardia, which is like fast rhythm of the heart. So we're trying to bring it to the normal number with the use of these meds. So some of these medications will cause some side effects like vision changes or vomiting, dizziness. Again, these medications are also the ones we want you to let us know if there are any side effects along those lines of dizziness that you face, just because we need to monitor them a lot more closely. So a lot of people in the room actually might be on something called statins, which are cholesterol lowering medications. So in the first circular bullet, you'll see atorvastatin or rosuvastatin. So what these medications, or this class of medications, is trying to do is take away the way our body might break down some of the food. So it might try to lower the LDL, which is considered the bad cholesterol. Meanwhile, others might help us absorb the better cholesterol from food, the HDL, faster, depending on which medication you're on. So the idea with these medications is that I like to hold up a broken pen with me, and imagine these are like your arteries or your veins. And if you were the kind of person who had Kentucky Fried Chicken most of your life, and all you ate was that because you had a fast-going life, these arteries and veins throughout your body may on the inside have like clogs, kind of like in your old water hose in your backyard, which gets like green slimy stuff within it if you don't clean it or you haven't used it in a while. So that's essentially what is happening within your body as well. The cholesterol is building up on the insides. And so the idea of using these meds is to try and help break that down as possible. And if it can't break it down, at least absorb less of it from the food that we continue to eat. So one approach to going about it, but another approach is to completely avoid being in this situation and help your arteries from the get-go, aka eat a healthier diet and be able to go to exercise and so on. So some side effects, some people get like muscle pain from using these meds. So they're like, okay, well, you're trying to help me with my heart, Urooj, but then I went to the gym and now my muscles hurt excruciatingly. So if you are in that position, come to me or any of the pharmacists, and we're happy to help you in terms of what can we do with the dose, or perhaps this is not the best fit for you and we could find an alternative solution. These are also the medications, the statins at least, where you do want to avoid the grapefruit juice with it. And you can't just say, hey, I love grapefruit juice, can I just like eat it or drink it a little bit before? You actually have to avoid it completely from your life. So if grapefruit juice is the love of your life, then let your pharmacist or physician know, because we can try and find you something else. So the last category I'll talk about, I promise I'm trying to be quick just so you don't fall asleep on me, is the vasodilators. So these same arteries that I spoke about earlier, if they became a little bit wider, just like the hose, if it's clogged, if I could use a wider hose, it would definitely bring more water to my plants, right? same idea, more blood can run through them and therefore get to our brain or our toes and be able to do whatever we need to do. So these meds might help us do that. So some examples are nitrates, hydralazine, just some names that might ring a bell to you and be aware of. So they're trying to help lower the pressure on the heart by opening up these arteries so more volume can go through and the heart doesn't have to pump so much harder on the smaller volume to try and get it everywhere. But these meds we also want you to be careful of. If they are trying to open up the arteries, you can imagine what if the dose isn't right for you and the pressure goes super down low. So now if you are sitting on a couch for a while, you get back up, your body doesn't have enough pressure to be able to move your leg or whatever the situation is. So these things do need to be very closely monitored. So if these are some meds that mean ring any bells to you or you use them, it is important to be aware of these meds. They also interact with some other medications. So one related to sexual health is Viagra. It is really important to be aware of that interaction for sure, just because they can interact and really lower the blood pressure quite a bit, that it's an emergency. So one quick comment I'll say about alternative medications. So at the beginning I mentioned there are natural health products as well, and some individuals might choose to take them as if they're naturally produced, they have like no side effects, and I can go about them. Honestly, anything different from your natural foods or anything you consume will have side effects. So including natural health products do have side effects as well. And natural health products specifically include things like vitamins, minerals, supplements, so that boost or ensure you might see at a pharmacy, herbal products, natural health products, even homeopathy. All of these meds do fall under this category. So if I said all of them do, anything different or artificial you put in your body from the outside world will have side effects. The rule will apply to these, but two specific ones related to heart health do have some evidence to show that they might be helpful. I'm not here to explain that the only thing that you get a prescription for is the best evidence-based thing. There are some other alternative possibilities as well. So Coenzyme Q10 has shown some benefit in some trials for heart contraction. So Coenzyme Q10 is literally an enzyme within the muscle that helps us transfer some of the electrons. This is getting really micro now, but essentially they help contract the muscle. So if you're trying to give your body more of this enzyme, if it was deficient, then it could use that to help contract the heart better. But do you know that you specifically are short on that enzyme, or do I have any tests that can diagnose that specific piece is missing in your body? Unfortunately, the answer currently is no. So if I don't know that you are short with it, there may not be evidence to say that yes, it will work for you. But it is a possible thing that has worked for some people. So it might be something you choose to take. Another one is omega-3s, which are prevalent in the fish. Most of Canada's new food guide just came out, and it spoke about taking more fish in, less of the red meats. One of the reasons was this guy. Because again, heart health is something we want you to have, and therefore getting more of this in your food might be a good idea. So the side effect piece, some of these natural health products that in general may cause nausea or flatulence. Some people may lead to more bleeding as well, and therefore causing some bruises within your body, like on your shins up front, you might see that. So just be aware of that piece. Okay, so last couple slides, I promise. And remember I said those brackets and the brand names and so on. So this is the piece that I wanted to bring up. So medications usually have generics and brand names, and then also some medication label piece I'll talk about really briefly. So you might know this or you might not know this, but a brand name of something like a Tylenol has a generic name called acetaminophen. Both of those things work exactly the same way. And similar to that, all the heart medications we mentioned have similar aspects. Now this goes back to just how industry works and how the medications, who had a patent, who didn't. And this is a conversation we can definitely have if you have more questions about it afterwards. But the point is that there are equivalent medications, and sometimes there's an economical version available for you in case you did want to save some money. They will have similar effects. There's also trends like most meds will have similar endings, just so that helps you get a awareness of what does that sort of medication do. And again, a pharmacist can very easily answer those questions for you. So the one other important thing is you get lots of labels on your prescription that you might pick up, whether from a hospital or a pharmacy, like a community pharmacy. It is really, really important to read that label. There is lots of amazing information on there. In sort of an emergency, you have all kinds of phone numbers in terms of being able to reorder. You know exactly what numbers you can call. Your prescription will have your name, and it's important to take your medication only, how to take it, the name of it, and so on. So it's also really important to these are general tips that we want you to be aware of. So take your medication with a giant glass of water is a really great advice. We could always incorporate more and more water within our body. Take your medication even when you're feeling well. This one specifically applies for that statin piece. The arteries were clogged up and so on. We really want you to have a consistent benefit, not just these meds aren't gonna, especially that statin one, isn't just gonna work if you take it for 2 months or 3 months. It is something that will be a bit more chronic because we did eat French fries most of our life, so we do need to take that much medication to try and help us break it down as well. Take your medication as it is prescribed. Don't try to change things as to, if there is a change that you require, ask us. Give us a call. We're happy to take your call to try and answer some things. It's also important to never double up on your doses, just because those side effects could double up or there could be other harmful things. So we want you to be aware of that. Now, definitely store your meds in an original container in a place that it is safe. So that is not your bathroom, because there's lots of humidity there from the showers. That's not your kitchen cabinet, because we cook there. Again, there's humidity. It would be a closet of some sort. Perhaps you have a den or something like that where you could keep your meds. Definitely check your expiration dates. And I think I said most of those other ones. There's also support available to you, similar to what Clara has brought in, the little boxes you can take with you. They'll help you organize your meds within the days, just to help you out. You can also ask your pharmacist to have them organized for you in something called a blister pack or a bubble pack, as shown on the right. These are mostly services that tend to be part of your dispensing fee that you already pay for. So it's not an additional cost by any means. Now, I know we love traveling. At least I do. So it's important to keep this one in mind, that, okay, I think we're running out of time, so we'll stop there. There were a couple other things, but we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to such a long spiel. But if you have questions, I'm happy to stay back and answer any questions. Did you want to?
No,
Yeah, I'll just.
Jerome, can I add something?
yes.
Hypertension May is Hypertension Month, and if we go to hypertension.ca, you click there, we're going to bring the pharmacies that are holding clinics during the month.